Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the mind of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on Monday, August 4th. The LA Galaxy 1-1 draw lost in penalty kicks to Cruz Azul on Sunday night. I have Thursday on the brain. On Sunday night, in front of a packed crowd of about 24,000. Of course, most of them were there for Cruz Azul. But having said that, that's usually the way it is whenever the Liga MX teams come in and play the LA Galaxy, so wasn't surprised. Had a fun time, good atmosphere, and the LA Galaxy actually, I think, found themselves playing against a very good team and probably learned some things along the way. We'll talk about the lineup. We'll talk about what the LA Galaxy tried to do in the game, what Greg Vanney wanted to see in that first half, why that didn't work, but what they saw in the second half and everything else there, sort of going to it. Plus, the path now for the LA Galaxy to get to the next round and what that means against Santos Laguna on Thursday night. That doubleheader game coming up on Thursday night. And then, of course, the league continues on Sunday. So the Galaxy hosting Seattle on Sunday as well. So a lot of soccer happening very, very quickly. All that happening while the transfer window is open as well. And will the LA Galaxy be buyers? Will they be hanging around? We might not know for at least a little bit longer here, but we have some indications of some stuff that's going. If you're looking for Mr. Kevin the Panda Baxter, he is off covering the Dodgers tonight, so he is a baseball reporter for the night, so you're stuck with me for a little bit as we take a quick little deep dive into Cruz Azul and what the LA Galaxy were able to accomplish on Sunday night, and that was just last night, although it feels like it might be a world away. If you were any one of those people who didn't make it home, I think I didn't get home until about 12:15 or so like that, after press conferences and everything. There was something to that. We were hanging around to see if we could catch some players who were straggling out. You know, sometimes you can outwait the press in the mix zone. You just wait until they get tired and they leave. So I did hang out there for about probably another 10, 12 extra minutes, hoping to see if there was anybody there who was trying to hide from us. And by the way, I say that with tongue in cheek. Most of the guys are great to talk to, so always good to try and do it. But an interesting game. From the very beginning. This is the hardest game the LA Galaxy were going to have to play. If you wanted to look at the results from, Seattle and Cruz Azul before this, the 7-0. 7-0 did not help the LA Galaxy, right? And I think we talked about that whenever we did the show on Friday night, which was, if you beat a team 7-0, there has to be a reaction, right? And especially for, the CONCACAF champions, Cruz Azul, what they were trying to do, against Seattle and how it didn't work and how things sort of went sideways for them. And now they get a game against the LA Galaxy in front of, let's call it a home crowd, because it was. Although, I will say, when the LA Galaxy scored in the second half, I did think the stadium was a lot louder than I thought it was going to be whenever they scored. So as much as people want to tell you it was like 90-10 or 80-20, I think it was probably maybe 70-30 or 60-40. But, those blues sort of mixed together, especially the whites mixed together. So it was a fun enough crowd for me to sort of see everybody there and everybody enjoying it. Not saying it was perfect, by the way. We got the chant was back and in effect, and it was so bad apparently that Leagues Cup, who was running the tournament, not the LA Galaxy, at the stadium, but Leagues Cup, who was running the tournament, tried to play music over top of one of our most notorious chants there. and that seemed to do absolutely nothing. You could still hear it. And then finally, towards the end of the game, they made the announcement. If I'm being cynical, the reason they didn't make the announcement earlier and tell everybody to knock off the homophobic chant was because they knew that if they continued to do it, that there would be repercussions on the field, right? The referee's eventually supposed to stop the game. They're supposed to wait. They're supposed to do all that stuff. Well, if you do that announcement earlier, then that puts those things into effect. The fact that they did it so late sort of allowed them to slide that by. I would say it's not unexpected. While it's disappointing, it's not unexpected, at these games. But having said that, I think the LA Galaxy's, 81st minute goal in the second half really did a lot to quiet anybody more than anything. And it sort of showed a turnaround from that first half, right? Because the first half was rough. And I think we have to sort of go back and point to why it was rough, right? So the 1-1 is the final score there. The LA Galaxy lose on penalty kicks, 7-8. We can actually go in and look at penalty kicks when we get a little bit further into this and talk about the penalty kick takers, because maybe you're a little surprised by actually how the LA Galaxy did. The starting lineup, as expected, except Nascimento went to the bench. Marco Royce was in that false 9. And Lucas Sanabria came in to sort of, and according to Greg Vanney and what he wanted to do, and I can understand when he brings Sanabria, what he's trying to do, he's trying to get more bite in that midfield, right? He's trying to get more defensive minded. He's trying to get the physicalness of Lucas Sanabria, who can and has put some pretty crunching tackles on some guys overall. The idea in this, though, is that there's also a Cruz Azul side that plays in a man-to-man system that can be suffocating whenever they play it. Greg Vanney said it reminded him of the Almeida days, at San Jose, maybe at Chivas whenever they were playing as well. Just in terms of the man-to-man coverage, how quick you have to be inside of playing against that man-to-man coverage, how Cruz Azul steps with physicality and quickness whenever they come. And so the idea was to add some physicality back into that midfield. The Galaxy don't have that punisher. The closest that I think we get is going to be Sanabria, and that's not even a perfect fit there. The idea there was to get Sanabria in there in order to provide some of that defensive cover, some of that hard-nosed soccer, so being able to make sure guys didn't just run through the middle of the whole deal. What ended up happening is Lucas Sanabria got yelled at for almost the entire first half in terms of his positioning and where to go and how to come back and cover. On the goal, it's Lucas Sanabria who's late to cover his guy, had to chase him all the way down the middle of the field whenever there's the cutback. I saw people talking about Zonka on that. And listen, there's plenty of Zonka things to point out in this particular game. There were some passes that he gave away that are just atrocious, and the Galaxy are lucky that they didn't get scored on. That first goal was not a Zonka problem. Zonka's job is to help. The goalkeeper takes the near post. Zonka takes the lane that's out from that near post, and then there's always going to be a lane that's further away from goal in behind the next one. What you're hoping is that your midfielders, Surreal or Sanabria, are able to get back and get into position and are able to stop that from happening, right? And that didn't happen in that. And that's how goals get scored. But that was probably one of the biggest missteps for Sanabria. But go and watch, because even in some of the stats and everything, they have, Gabriel Peck sort of playing at a wing back position. And one of the reasons that Peck was having to drop so deep in the first half was because Sanabria was giving up so much space in the midfield that the Galaxy were getting outnumbered, especially out on the wings. And so Peck was having to drop back. That's okay. Gabriel Peck and Joseph Paintsil sometimes will have to play defense. And I think people get too tied up in that, right? Like, oh, well, they're just forwards. You just want them on the outside. Yeah, you do. That's where they're going to be most effective. And some of the ways that you can force a team like Cruz Azul to sit back a little bit more is to ensure that those guys like Gabriel Peck and Joseph Paintsil run forward and occupy the space back behind, the outside midfielders from Cruz Azul, who are going to push forward and create that overload on those sides. So Gabriel Peck was coming back and sometimes playing next to Miki Imane. Again, with spacing and with Royce sometimes even dropping back, and the spacing wasn't there. Let's put it that way. And so Gabriel Peck found himself playing some defense in that first half. Greg Vanney said afterwards the fact that they couldn't get a hold of the game in the first half, even though I think they created two pretty good chances in the first half, The fact that they really couldn't get a hold of the first half was clearly due to sort of Sanabria and everything he wanted. He said, in hindsight, it didn't work. And it was one of those things that at halftime, if you were part of our little scrum, our little campfire that we have at halftime at the bottom of the press box stairs there, everybody sort of was talking about the moves they were going to make. And I said at halftime, you put Nascimento back up in the 9. We always guess this not knowing health and sort of status, and maybe Nasi had a knock. It didn't seem that way, but maybe that's why he didn't start. There was a whole, you could always play that game, which is, you don't have all the information, but if everybody was healthy, the halftime switch that you'd hope would settle the LA Galaxy was one that we've sort of seen them play well here in recent times, and that is get Nascimento up top, drop Marco Royce back into the 10, allow him to float a little bit and find some space. With Cruz Azul winning 1-0, they were looking more for counterattack, although they did hold possession at times and did a good job of holding possession, but they sat back a little bit more in that second half, and so allowed the Galaxy to have the ball a little bit more, allowed Marco Royce to pick through some spaces, and sort of find the game a little bit in order to create and do some of those things. So, that adjustment really worked well. The Galaxy were much more dangerous in the second half, although it took a Mauricio Cuevas sub coming on for Miki Amane to really open it up. And once again, I don't think anybody's surprised, but Mauricio Cuevas came and showed up and did what he was supposed to do. The only thing that's missing for him now, and I think we're getting close to sort of that balance point, is Mauricio Cuevas could find himself, he needs to be a little bit better on the defensive side if he's going to start starting, right? And that's sort of what we're waiting to see. Nothing against Miki Amane, but at this point, Mauricio Cuevas with a hot right foot needs to get more minutes, and the Galaxy need that crossing. I've been begging and pleading for more crossing, and the bottom line was that, I don't think they're getting it, but whenever Mauricio Cuevas comes in, he's able to find the balls in. And by the way, wonder ball that he sent in for Gabriel Peck. Only Gabe could get to that. A good slide and all those things that were sort of there. This game that's crazy too, just from the very beginning, and certainly somebody who should have had a bigger effect on this game and had a chance to have a bigger effect on this game was Joseph Paintsil. But some weird stuff happening at the right minute. We have to remember that we're not getting, pro referees in Leagues Cup. We're getting Leagues Cup. We're getting CONCACAF, right? We're getting some of those. So you will see some of the pro guys from MLS. You should see some of the guys from Mexico, that type of thing. You should get a handful of those, but you're also getting a lot of CONCACAF refs. And I know everybody's aware of this, but if it wasn't clear, it should be clear again. CONCACAF refs are horrible. They always have been. And the bottom line is they don't get enough big games. That's why the referees from Mexico and the United States and Canada are the referees you want in these, CONCACAF games. Joseph Paintsil was done dirty in this game. There was particularly in the first half when he got a yellow card early in the game, whenever he was called for a foul that easily could have been 2 yellow cards on Cruz Azul. He was dragged down. He was kicked twice. And the referee came over and gave him a foul. Called the foul on Joseph Paintsil. Greg Vanney said afterwards, when you see something like that, and it happens, and it happened multiple times in that first half, Greg Vanney said it's hard for Joseph not to take that personally. Like, that and I'll paraphrase for Greg, but basically what he's saying is, it's like the referee had it out for Joe. And I try to stay as equal as I can on this stuff. So that way we can understand all the different aspects. And certainly I think that Joseph Paintsil has a tendency to go down easy. I also think that sometimes he fights through physical challenges and doesn't get calls. In this particular game, Joseph Paintsil was fouled numerous times aggressively and didn't get most of those calls. You could even go back into the possible penalty kick. And I've gone back and watched it a little bit. I'm not sure if it's on the line, outside the line, wherever it is. I'll tell you right now that there's no process for us to ask whether or not there was a VAR review. They said that they would check it, which they check all those plays, so it's nothing to be too excited about. But Joseph Paintsil getting on the line and getting fouled. He was fouled. It's just about whether or not it's inside the box to me. I got to see a quick replay of it because Leagues Cup apparently is being directed by the same just absolute dolts that are directing MLS games. So we see horrible replays. We see angles which you would never show the replay from. When there's an offsides call, you'll never get a replay. You won't understand what it is. They'll do it from some weird angle, like behind the goal, to try to show you replay. it's atrocious. It's quite honestly, it's giving MLS and it's giving, any games that are sort of associated with MLS and how they're producing really bad names, because it's difficult to watch and follow these games from the television broadcast a lot of the time. I think the announcers do the job that they can. Some of them are calling it off of monitors. Like the game last night was called off monitors. There was no crew at the stadium. So, I think Joe had a I think Joseph Paintsil was probably right in any criticism that he would lob at the referee, but it draws a lot of questions whenever you watch that game and you sort of look at Joseph Paintsil and what happened in that game. I can't tell you that any other player on that field felt the wrath of the referee the way that Joseph Paintsil did for not very many fouls. Paintsil did finally lower his shoulder and put his shoulder between the shoulder blades of a Cruz Azul player and knocked him straight to the ground. It was sort of like, if you're going to call fouls on me, I'm just going to get my money's worth out of him. But some of the calls that went against Joseph Paintsil there, if you want to say are suspect, you can say suspect. I watched a lot of that. So, you look at that, and I think that really affected sort of the way the attitude that Joseph Paintsil played with for that game. And that's tough. It's tough. I think certainly as an outside perspective, you have to sit there and say, Paintsil has to shake that off and just let it go. And, you can't feed into it. That's tough to do. Soccer's an emotional game. Paintsil's being aggrieved and assaulted out there. I think Greg Vanney called it assaulted. I'll agree with him. He wasn't getting the calls that he should have gotten. And when you put it that way, it's hard not to be emotional, right? And I think that took Joseph Paintsil out of it a little bit. But having said that, Gabriel Peck had a chance to feed Joseph Paintsil whenever Peck had cut on the right-hand side and cut in along the line. And finally, Paintsil was open in the middle, and all he had to do was just hit Paintsil's foot from about 10 yards away, and he overcooked that thing like you wouldn't believe. The Galaxy shot themselves in the foot a couple times. That being said, Cruz Azul also had some chances they probably should have done it a lot better with. I don't think that the 1-1 draw is anything. The draw is the correct answer in this. Yes, Marco Reus had a chance to score late in that game, and we can talk about that as well. Marco Reus, who minutes before was down on the ground, had to be helped off the field, went over and talked to Greg Vanney. The only reason that Marco Reus stayed on the field in that point, well, there were two reasons, was that the Galaxy, according to Vanney, had used the window, so he didn't have a sub to take him off. So he couldn't replace him. And two is that they had penalty kicks right after this, and they wanted Marco Reus to take it, right? When asked after the game whether or not Marco Reus had escaped without injury, Greg Vanney said that he didn't know and that he would have to check in on him. He said he felt better about the fact that Marco Reus was able to do that sprint at the end, but you're asking a guy who looked like he was injured basically to make that sprint. And at some point, I think in the press box, he started running, and we looked at each other and we were like, "Oh, he should not be running." We were already basically convinced that he was injured. And that's sort of what you're getting all these games in a short amount of time. I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see a Marco Reus coming up on Thursday. And we can certainly talk about what the lineup looks like against Seattle on Sunday as well. Because if the Galaxy somehow advance through this, basically the starters are going to start on Thursday when all is said and done here, because there's a chance for the LA Galaxy to advance, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I think Marco Reus is a question mark in terms of how much he put out there. So I wasn't surprised that he got caught on the breakaway. I wasn't surprised the ball that sort of got cut underneath his feet. I was amazed that he was sort of running in that position at that time. So again, it's something to watch, but if Marco Reus can't go, and I think it also shows sort of the seriousness of where the LA Galaxy are in terms of they have to right now find a way to advance in this tournament, because their season is over, and it's going to be even more over whenever they throw everything at the kitchen sink on Thursday night and 3 days later have a game against Seattle. I have no idea what to expect from that lineup, but if you told me that, and no offense to these guys, but guys who haven't been playing are going to be playing against Seattle, right? So, like Tucker Lepley, yeah, maybe Harbor Miller comes back up, maybe you're getting Eric Zavaleta, maybe John McCarthy starts in goal. Like you're going to have to rotate on Sunday, because right now these guys are running on fumes. They have the schedule right now is they were off today and tomorrow. So Monday and Tuesday off, train Wednesday, game Thursday, train Friday, Saturday, game Sunday. All right. So, and the reason they're getting the Monday, Tuesday off right now is because they need the full rest. And so they're going to have approximately 1 day of walkthroughs in order to get ready for, Santos, which I think is going to be a little bit easier to prepare for than probably Cruz Azul with the man-on-man marking. But nonetheless, it's a short, condensed week, and the guys are tired. Everybody's tired at this point. And by the way, all of the teams in this, in this tournament are tired at this point. There's been you've played the games now, right? You've sort of done it. It's quick, it's rapid succession, and with how physical it was against Cruz Azul on Sunday night, the Galaxy are feeling all of that. So the interesting thing, of course, is that the Galaxy come back and tie this game. And they do it, I think, in a good fashion, and I think they had a lot of control in the second half. So for me, I'm watching sort of how they handle and how they solve the problems that Cruz Azul presents. I think you could be optimistic that the LA Galaxy have the ability to solve problems in games sometimes. And that probably wasn't true at the beginning of this year, and I don't have the answer as to why. But you're started to see them figure out Cruz Azul in the second half. And yes, that was a formation with Nascimento going up top and being able to hold, and Greg after the game talked about that, just having Nasi up there and knowing that whenever you did need a relief valve, that you were able to sort of chuck it up to Nascimento. He was able to hold the ball a little bit, maybe distribute out. But the bottom line is the Galaxy started to wear down Cruz Azul in that second half. And you saw the pass from Cuevas that sort of opened everything up. And then you get into it. You have the chances from Paintsil, the possible penalty. You have the chances from Royce, inside the box. You have Cruz Azul hitting it off the upright there in the second half as well. So, as far as I still don't know how Cruz Azul missed the game-winning goal, because to me that was a much more clear opportunity than even the Galaxy had. But you put Marco Royce in one-on-one on the goalkeeper, and you expect some of those to go in, right? And that was one of those that you were hoping would go in. The Galaxy could have stole the points there. If they stole the points there, you would be talking about an easier game on Thursday, but I don't think it gets drastically harder, and we can sort of talk about that. But Galaxy go into, while everybody waits for VAR to review the possible Paintsil penalty, the triple P, the possible Paintsil penalty, we sort of got shifted into the penalty kicks. And so the LA Galaxy, I believe, won the coin toss and were able to go ahead and shoot first. Marco Royce buried his. Gabriel Peck buried his. Nascimento. Okay, so now we've seen Nascimento take 2 penalty kicks. He's on the list, right? Like, he's one of those guys you want taken now. In both of those, he has looked absolutely flawless, calm, collected, everything that you want to see. Royce, Peck, Nascimento, Fagundes finished well. Joseph Paintsil finished well, which is sometimes a question mark for him. Cuevas actually finished pretty well. John Nelson finished well. And once you got it past Mauricio Cuevas and into John Nelson, into Edwin Cerrillo, into Garces, Amiro Garces, the only thing I would have liked to seen is maybe after John Nelson is you get Yoshida in there, because I think Yoshida is one of those guys who certainly can take it, and he came on to sort of put himself in a position, or the Galaxy put him in a position to I think, one, help lock down the defensive side against Cruz Azul in the final minutes there, but also be on the field for the penalty kicks. And Greg said that they had basically figured out the first, I think, 5, and then after that was sort of who did you think was going to sort of take it? Greg Vanney asked afterwards, by the way, and we should point out, it was Cerrillo who missed, who had his goal saved, or his shot saved, and then Amiro Garces had his shot saved. It was Orozco on Cruz Azul who hit it off the crossbar, and then Mateo Levy, I believe, was the final one there, who knocked it in. The disappointing thing, I think, if you're watching this from a penalty kick sort of sense, and what you're getting from the Galaxy is, one, I think you should be happy that the LA Galaxy actually took their penalty kicks fairly well. Should that happen again in any sort of game, and as you get into playoffs and other things, playoffs, I know that was stupid. It was a Freudian slip. As you get into any of these knockout games where there has to be penalty kicks, I think ratcheting the pressure up, and this one was a good one, especially with the crowd the way that it was. So that was the positive. The negative was that Novak Mitrovic didn't touch a ball didn't get to a single one. I don't know if he looked like he was guessing, looked like he was trying to guess early. I always think that penalty kicks are sort of this mix between guessing and reaction, right? Where in your mind, you sort of have to be like, I'm going this way. And then you have to react to the ball when it goes the way that you're guessing, And from what I saw, Mitrovic didn't even get close to touching one. That being said, I thought Cruz Azul took really nice penalty kicks. I don't think that's definitely one of the things against Mitrovic. Which is, I thought that Cruz Azul did a good job. But having said that, you want your goalkeeper to do it. Greg Vanney was asked afterwards if he thought about switching goalkeepers at the before extra time, so that way John McCarthy could get in there. We know John McCarthy has a long history of being an excellent penalty kick saver. And Greg Vanney's response was, no, this was Mitrovic's time to get a penalty kick, to get into a penalty situation. It's, sort of, we wanted to see him this year and sort of what he could do in that situation. I think he also took him against Chivas, if I remember correctly. Was it last year or earlier? I don't remember. Everything's starting to blend in, right? So, yeah, and that was sort of the answer. At some point, the fiddling has to stop, and I also think that there were no subs left whenever they did it anyway. But at some point, things have to sort of you have to take this tournament seriously, and I wonder a little bit with Vanney and trying Royce at the false nine. I understand trying to get what you're trying to get out of it, but that was fairly certain. That was fairly clear quickly that it wasn't going to work. And can you make that adjustment? And you pull Nascimento early, or not Nascimento, but Sanabria. I am not as down on Sanabria as some people's U22 player. He is a project. I think he has had some good moments. I don't think there's been enough of them. I think that his physicality is a bonus, and if he can learn to use that inside of the proper positioning in that midfield in a double pivot with Cerrillo and allow the LA Galaxy to be a little more defensive sometimes against teams, and then be able to provide some effort going forward, I think Sanabria can be a good player on this team. Where he's at right now and how he's playing right now and sort of the disconnect that he's finding in the formation, that's something they have to work on. And that's really, I think that's what it is more than anything. For me, it's positionally, where he is and how he presses and when he presses and, the smart places to do that. And in a Vanney system, being smart with your pressing and trying to do those things, you have to be careful with that. Because if you press in the wrong time, you press in the wrong place, other guys aren't covering, then all of a sudden you watch and they were coming in. I'll say that Greg Vanney probably almost lost his voice yelling at Lucas Sanabria in that first half, trying to get him into the proper positions. And by the way, Aude was yelling at him, Zonko was yelling at him, Cerrillo was yelling at him. There was a lot of guys trying to get him in the right position in order to help, and the Galaxy were putting out fires in that first half. I'm not as low. I'm also not as low on Zonka as most people too. But having said that, you watch what Sanabria did, and it was clearly him in the midfield and his positioning that I felt were causing the problems. And we're probably right if we assume that, because Greg Vanney pulls him at halftime, moves Marco Royce down, puts Nascimento up top, and all of a sudden things stabilize a little bit. Also different phase of the game, and I think we talked about that. Cruz Azul sitting back a little bit more, but certainly with possession and everything else they had, they played well. Cruz Azul's not a bad team. I know the 7-0 result in Seattle wants everybody to sort of jump up and down and say, oh, the Galaxy should have done something. They should have been better with that, I get it. Having said that, Cruz Azul is a good team. That was a fluke result on turf in a tournament that if you want to argue that Liga MX teams are just barely taking seriously, I can kind of agree with you in some of that. So that's where we sort of get in the results from this particular game. Looking at the Galaxy's best players, Edwin Cerrillo at 7'6" was one of them. 7'9" from Gabriel Peck on the outside. Again, FOTMob thinks that he's a wing back for some reason. He was not, but that's fine. Whenever they put that way, it was, I believe, Carlos Rodriguez over on Cruz Azul who had the 8-2, and again, these teams are separated, by FOTMob's ranking 7-1 to 6-9. The Galaxy had big chances. Cruz Azul had big chances. I don't think the draw was out of the way. Could either of the teams stolen this? Yes, 100%. Either of those teams could have stolen a win. But I think it was sort of fair that it ended in the draw. The bad thing for the Galaxy is if you get the 2 points from the winning draw, right? If you get those 2 points, then it helps you a lot. It puts you into 5 points and you're automatic. Now you're into that 4th spot. So that way people are going to have to figure out how to jump you, right? And I am not convinced that Minnesota is going to roll over, especially with who they're playing. So we have to look at it. Let's look at the standings right now. And remember, we look at the MLS side of the table because the Liga MX side does not matter right now. There are 2 teams that are perfect right now, and I thought for sure there were going to be more teams that were perfect. But hey, what do I know? Leagues Cup only gets me so excited about some of this stuff. I do enjoy the tournament once it's here, but I find a lot of it stupid and unnecessary, basically, whenever it all comes down to it. But you have Seattle with 6 points. You have Seattle beating Santos Laguna, who's now coming down to play the LA Galaxy on Thursday night. Santos Laguna has been eliminated from the tournament, right? So Seattle 6 points, Portland 6 points, Miami 5 points, Minnesota 4. Here are all the teams with 4 points. Minnesota is the last team currently above the line. So it's Minnesota with 4 points, and that's the LA Galaxy in 5th with 4 points, Columbus in 6th with 4, Orlando in 7th with 4, Cincinnati with 8 points, in 8th place right now with 4 points, and New York Red Bulls with 4 points in that 9th position. Any of those 4s and the 3s technically can still make it. I think you're looking at the 4s, though. You're looking at, first of all, Miami's going to have to do something because I think Minnesota's going to win their game. I think the LA Galaxy are going to win their game. I think Columbus could definitely win their game. I haven't even gone below that, but Cincinnati's a great team, and they can probably win their game that's happening. The awesome thing for the LA Galaxy is they play the absolute last match of Phase 1. So what's going to happen on Wednesday night, when everything is said and done, you're going to be able to watch those games, and you're going to find that the LA Galaxy are sitting with 4 points, and you're going to find out where they need to be in order to advance. It's going to be 7 points. The Galaxy have to win against Santos Laguna, in my opinion. Yes, there's probably weird ways that it doesn't work that way. You're asking for a lot of people to not win. You're asking for New York, Cincinnati, Orlando, Columbus, to not win, Minnesota to not win in order for you to sort of pop up and do that. I think that there's going to be a handful of winners in those. And because of that, where you sit right now with goal differential is sort of going to matter. So we can go to tiebreakers just to remind you what the tiebreakers are, because this is important. Wins in regular time, that's going to be already tied. If you win the next game, you're going to be tied with somebody on that. So the next thing is goal differential, and that's sort of where the LA Galaxy are sitting right now. Then it's going to be most goals scored. So there is going to be a number. We are going to know it because Minnesota will play on Wednesday night. Let's see. I think I have the game. I put it somewhere in here. I think it's right here. Yeah, that is. So on Wednesday night, Minnesota plays Atletico de San Luis. Again, I think Minnesota's going to win that game. But having said that, you get to see what Minnesota does. You'll get to see what all the other teams do. And then you will get a number for the LA Galaxy. That number is going to be, in my opinion, you're going to have to win. So that's the first thing. So you're going to get up to 7 points. The 7 points and then the goal differential and goals for are going to be what this does. So right now it is Minnesota and the LA Galaxy both have goal differentials of +3, but it is Minnesota who scored one more goal. They have 7 goals. The LA Galaxy have 6. And that's why Minnesota is ahead right now. So we will know what that number is on Thursday night. We'll be able to broadcast that, and then we'll be able to figure out exactly what the LA Galaxy need to do in order to advance. But there absolutely is a window to advance. The LA Galaxy are in the second best position to take that last spot because Minnesota's currently in that last spot. The LA Galaxy are second right behind them. Columbus is right behind them because the goal differential is 2, but goals for is 5, so the Galaxy would have that if they tied. You can sort of see how this lays out. Ultimately, it's going to come down to the LA Galaxy playing on Thursday night and probably winning by like a 2-goal margin. I think you're probably going to get there. You might have to win by a 3-goal margin. But the Galaxy will know what that number is. And then you run up the store. Santos Laguna is eliminated from this already. I don't know how motivated they're going to be to play the LA Galaxy on Thursday night, part of the doubleheader, because Colorado and Cruz Azul play beforehand. You can go over to the Liga MX side if you want, with Tigres with 6 points, Juarez with 5, Mazatlan with 5, Toluca with 5, right? You can sort of see where they're laid out, but the big news for the LA Galaxy is they're playing a team that's already eliminated. And I think that's going to really work in their favor. Plus, being the last game, you don't have to guess. You'll know how many goals you need to score. You'll know what the goal differential is. All those fun things. By the way, get ready for twists and turns at the end of that game, because if a certain score is needed and the LA Galaxy have to push and press, you could find that there are a whole bunch of things that could go wrong and wacky with this. And with so many teams sitting right there on the precipice of advancing, you're gonna get into the tiebreakers. So pay attention to those tiebreakers. That's how that's gonna set out. But right now it will be the LA Galaxy hosting Santos Laguna, the number 7th ranked LA Galaxy versus number 34th ranked Santos Laguna, who's already been eliminated. 8:15 is your TV start time on a Thursday night. God save us all. It's really 8:25 whenever you figure in the 10-minute TV time that's going to play into that. And then, of course, there's just 45 minutes between the Colorado and Cruz Azul game and the LA Galaxy and Santos Laguna game. So watch what that field looks like whenever they're done too, because there's a lot of action that's been taking on the field, and that field has done a very good job of handling and maintaining that all the time. So yeah, it's one of those things that you can look at and say that the Galaxy have a real chance of advancing in this, and if they advance, then away they go. We can look at that a little bit if you want. If the LA Galaxy advance, the next games wouldn't be until August 19th or 20th. And if we go to the LA Galaxy's calendar, we can see that would allow the Galaxy to play the game versus Seattle on Sunday. That's this Sunday, just in case you were saying. Then, of course, you have the 8/16 game where the LA Galaxy are going to Miami. Right now, Leo Messi is out with what they're calling a minor injury, and his return is sort of unknown. That'll happen. And then the 19th and 20th. So there would be a game that happens between the Miami game and the LA Galaxy hosting Colorado. So that's when that would all take place. So those would be those semifinals, right? If you advance past that, then of course you're going from the 19th and 20th to August 26th and 27th. Then finally, the final round there is in the August 31st, right? And there is a third place match. Remember, first, second, third, all qualify for CONCACAF Champions Cup next year. So that's what we have with the LA Galaxy and how they're sort of setting up. Again, I think a relatively clear way to get the LA Galaxy through to the next rounds, but it's going to take a little bit in order to do that. One of the things that's going on as well as we're talking about all this is that we have the ability to see what's going to happen with the transfer window. And I was able to get a little update, and I will certainly share that update. If you're on the Discord, I think you already got that update. But the LA Galaxy are in a waiting period right now. And the reason they're waiting is because, as we've talked about, and everybody knows this, right? The LA Galaxy's general allocation money was down to 0, right? So the LA Galaxy don't have the cash to go out and sort of make moves and do anything, and they don't have the roster spots to be able to bring it in. They don't have the international slots to be able to bring in internationals. All of these things can be rectified, and you could certainly leverage 2026 general allocation money if you wanted to in order to make a move here in 2025, right? That being said, because there seems to be one roster room and, general allocation money and just, targeted allocation money that you'll be using in that 2026 season next year, there's probably going to be a little bit of a hesitancy to go out and try to leverage any of 2026 for this season, especially where the LA Galaxy are at. That's my opinion in terms of how that looks. Now, that doesn't mean anything, but we've told you before, in order for the LA Galaxy to bring somebody in during the transfer window, somebody's going to have to go out first. There are going to be teams that are looking for players to come in, and maybe that player gives them, the edge, right? We talked about goalkeepers. John McCarthy, JT Marcinkowski, Novak Mitrovic. I think there's going to be an opportunity to move a goalkeeper. Perhaps somebody needs one and somebody could go find one, and the LA Galaxy have a couple that they have ready and sort of waiting to go. So that's one to watch. A man who has, I think, played himself onto the rosters and onto the minds of a lot of people is Mauricio Cuevas, coming off the bench. A guy who has excellent touch with his right foot, seems to be able to handle all levels of soccer in Major League Soccer. Mauricio can absolutely play and could be a very expensive asset that transfers inside the league, right? So that's something to sort of watch. Julian Aude could be one of those guys as well. Maybe there's a reason he's getting so much playing time recently. One is he should, and two is the LA Galaxy could possibly move that as a piece. That's valuable. And inside MLS, we now have that internal transfer market, and we saw, I think an $8 million deal for Mihailovic today, going from Colorado to Toronto, a deal that he was sort of like, you have to let me go. That sucks to be Colorado, by the way. One of their, if not one of their best play, if not the best player on the team. Mihailovic now going to reunite, I think, with Robin Fraser up in Toronto. But wanting to get out of Colorado, basically, and we can understand that. Colorado, sometimes they're bad, sometimes they're okay, but you rarely see them be great, right? And I think Mihailovic is sort of doing that. But that was an internal transfer market deal that happened. Now we're sort of waiting to see what else can happen. Dejan Joveljic was moved inside of those transfer market. So we will see how this ramps up. But the LA Galaxy, and I think they're standing firm on this, and I think we can all understand why they're standing firm on this, is they will go after something once they are able to move a piece. Does that mean the LA Galaxy are broke? Yes, that's the indication, but it's also, we knew that a long time ago, right? We've sort of understood where that is. I mean, even just getting an international slot right now for Ricky Puig is sort of like, you're going to have to move somebody in order to make that happen. And, again, that's stuff we've known from the beginning of the year, that the Galaxy would eventually have to go and make a move for an international roster slot or move somebody out. It's the reason why Gino Vivi right now is playing down with G2 and not necessarily up with the senior team. So they're trying to work through, I believe, green card stuff, and the green card system has ground to a halt from my understanding. So things are going a lot slower now, as you would expect with all the immigration things going on in the United States right now. So that's an issue for the LA Galaxy as well, is just finding room for some of these guys to come back. People brought up Johnny Perez with Nashville. Johnny Perez was a stopgap, and I don't want to say that because Johnny Perez, I think, is a really talented player, but Johnny Perez was a replacement for Tyler Boyd whenever Tyler Boyd had his it was an ACL or knee issue, whatever it is, that basically took him out from Nashville whenever he was playing for Nashville. And so they went in and got Johnny Perez. Johnny Perez was playing there at Nashville. He's been playing a little more. He's been showing how I think some of the versatility that he has, and Nashville's a good team right now. So you can look at that and say, wow, okay, Johnny Perez. Well, Johnny Perez had a chance to come back to the LA Galaxy right now. Now, Nashville would basically have to agree that they want to terminate the loan, and the Galaxy would have to agree to terminate the loan, and, everybody comes back, and then Johnny Perez come back. But with Tyler Boyd, I don't believe back, and I haven't heard a whole bunch of updates. Johnny Perez is probably staying in Nashville till the end of the year. Then at the end of the year, there's a purchase option for Johnny Perez, right? But I don't think you're getting Johnny Perez back right now. That was something people, I think, have been sort of clamoring for, is to pull him back. And as of right now, I believe his fate lies with Nashville and what they want to do and how they want to approach that. So that's not going to happen either, at least not right now. The only thing I can think of is that Nashville thinks that Tyler Boyd is a scratch completely for this season, which it very well could be, and they may have already made that decision. I don't track them as much. But if you look at what they want to do, is they've realized that by terminating Perez's loan, that they can go out and get somebody that they want, maybe more than Johnny Perez, maybe somebody that fits. Now they're in a position in the Eastern Conference where they are a contender, and because they're a contender, that means that you go and spend the money, because when you are a contender and you spend the money, sometimes you end up with an MLS Cup, which is why the LA Galaxy are broke right now. Certainly some mismanagement, some stuff that had happened prior to, and cleaning up some of those contracts, but the LA Galaxy were very well aware of what 2025 would look like whenever they went all in on the 2024 season to win an MLS Cup. So, this is Nashville's chance perhaps to go all in, because they think they have a chance to win an MLS Cup right now. And if that's the case, maybe Johnny Perez doesn't fit their long-term plans, and they can sort of terminate that loan now. He comes back, and then they go out and get somebody they want. That's the only way I would see it sort of playing out now, is if Nashville presses this. But Perez has been, I think, playing well playing well with Nashville. I think he's certainly at least making them ask the question about whether or not they're going to purchase him at the end of the year. So that's something to watch as we continue down. But again, for the LA Galaxy, and I get it, it's quiet. And I was, I'm talking to people with the Galaxy. I'm like, anything, they're sort of like, we're waiting. And there's a point to this as well. The waiting is not laziness or inaction. The waiting is that deals happen when there is pressure. And pressure is created by windows closing. Pressure is created by pieces moving around, right? And so as pieces move, as windows start to close, as teams start to focus back on league, and again, we're talking about Leagues Cup because it's been front and center for the last two games. The Galaxy have one more game in Leagues Cup on Thursday. They're back in Major League Soccer and playing a game against Seattle on Sunday. The league will restart here quickly. And when it starts to restart, then you're going to get people who are starting to pay attention to what that means for teams in the rest of these games. 10 games left for the LA Galaxy right now, but some teams have 9 games left, right? So there's 9 games left. People are thinking about what that stretch run looks like. As ridiculous as it is that MLS and, CONCACAF and US Soccer and whoever else you want to blame, throw them all in a pile, had a transfer window that ends with like 9 games left in the season. So a full 2/3 of the season happened before the transfer window. The transfer window is supposed to split everything. It's going to be another reason that there's going to be an argument for schedule change and everything else. And it does feel like the schedule change is going to eke its way across the line in 2027. Okay, so I don't know what 2026 looks like and how you get into 2027, and what kind of break do you take, and is like 2026 like half a year, and then oh man, we're gonna have so much fun. Wait till I'm getting old, and I can just imagine the amount of complaining that I'm going to have whenever they start to switch the schedule and doing all that stuff. But, I think that happens, and now we'd be looking at this major summer transfer window. It's really preseason right now, right? We'd be in preseason, getting ready to start the season. So wait for that window to start to close. Maybe some things happen. I am not of the opinion that the LA Galaxy have to make any moves right now. The team's sort of where it's at. And I think you can wait until the offseason whenever you understand what your 2026 outlay, and I think they do understand that right now, but they know sort of what they want to do in 2026. I am expecting that 2026 is a big year for the LA Galaxy. I don't think that's crazy to say. I will say I did not expect them to fall to the depths that they have certainly this season. And, whether you want to call this a lost season or anything else, I can certainly understand that. Just a couple other little housekeeping things. The LA Galaxies in their run of form in their last 10 matches played across all competitions dating back to May 31st. The LA Galaxy hold a record of 4-2-4, 21 goals for, 15 goals against in their last 6 matches. 4-2-4, 21 goals for, 15 goals against. In their last 6 matches played across all competitions at Dignity Health Sports Park dating back to May 31st. The LA Galaxy hold a record of 4-1-1, 14 goals for, 6 goals against. Notably, Gabriel has recorded a goal. 3 goals, 2 assists total, right, in 3 consecutive matches played across all competitions dating back to July 19th. So Peck is starting to come alive. We've seen Paintsil start to come alive. The LA Galaxy's record hasn't been as atrocious as we were expecting, but of course we do get Seattle coming in on Sunday, and I sort of hinted at it before, and I was sort of joking around. I have no idea what the lineup is going to look like for either of those teams at this point. All of them are, Seattle's in a position to transfer. Going into the next round, the Galaxy have a chance to transfer into that next round. Pretty interesting that it's mostly Western Conference teams, by the way, who are at the top of Leagues Cup right now, and it's Seattle and Portland, the Pacific Northwest, dominating up top with the 2 perfect records, and then Miami, the one with 5 points there, and then you have Minnesota and the Galaxy, and then finally you get into the second Eastern Conference team. It's Columbus, Orlando, Cincinnati, New York. In some ways, it feels like the LA Galaxy should be in this position in the league, right? Which is, maybe 5th or 6th or 7th in the Western Conference. But because of the atrocious start, it's been nasty and ugly and everything else. Adam, $5 super chat, and let's get to these, and then we will roll on out of here. $5 super chat says, Josh, why didn't Vanney not rotate goalkeepers for game 1 and game 2? I know a few teams did, like Houston, Columbus Crew did. The LA Galaxy are trying to roll out a first team lineup and win this tournament. Sometimes it may not feel that way, but I certainly think with Vanney, starting Sanabria, I understand why he did it. It didn't work, And that's what happens sometimes. People also complain when Vanney does the same thing over and over again, so it doesn't really matter. I saw somebody said the Galaxy were outplayed in the first half. Yeah, of course they were. The spacing was horrible for the Galaxy. But I thought the Galaxy outplayed Cruz Azul in the second half. So great. There you go. Guess what? The score ended 1-1. $5 super chat from Adam says, I felt Paintsil was a bit selfish yesterday on some of the plays. He is a striker / forward / guy who always loves to be call his own number. I say the same thing about Gabriel Peck, and I have criticized both of them for doing it. I didn't have any concerns with either of them against Cruz Azul, but there's something. Adam with $2 super chat says, is there any concern Mitrovic didn't save any PKs? Yeah, I think we covered that a little bit. Yeah, there should be. He should get a hand on one. That's what you want. Greg Vanney even said it in the postgame. He goes, you're hoping that in the first 5, your goalkeeper gets to one. And he didn't. So we'll see. We'll see. Kyle, by the way, $20 super chat. Kyle, certainly appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thanks for all you do, Josh. Kyle, thank you. I appreciate it for the listeners and everybody who's hanging in there. I know this is not the easiest of seasons to pay attention to, and now we have to pay attention to this ludicrous competition in Leagues Cup with Liga MX teams just barely paying attention to what's going on most of the time in some of these games. But all that sort of changes with the LA Galaxy focusing on Thursday night against Santos Laguna and then Sunday against Seattle. So another big week for the LA Galaxy and everything else that we are looking at. This could be a pretty interesting game. And again, the real key to this is because the Galaxy played the last game, they will know exactly how many goals they need to score. On Wednesday night, you want to watch Minnesota lose. That's really what you're voting for. If they win, then you want them to do it by 1 goal, right? That's what it is. So you would like to see that. We also have to watch some of those other games to see how many goals they got because everybody's tied at the same. The goal differential will sort of slide people up and down that. So again, we'll know all of that before the LA Galaxy head out onto the field on Thursday night, and so we'll know the number, and we can sit there in the press box. We can sit there at the game. Hopefully you're coming to the game, but you can go there knowing how many goals the LA Galaxy or what goal differential the Galaxy need to achieve in order to win. So, it should be a fun time. All right. Should be a fun time. Anybody watching, what was it? The K-pop Demon Hunters? Are you guys in on that? I thought it was going to be stupid and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Also saw Bad Guys 2, because I have a 5.5-year-old. I was going to take a nap in the movie theater because it's one of my favorite places to nap. It's always nice and cool. You can put your sunglasses on. It's nice and dark. I ended up staying awake for it. So it was good. Let's see, Darren, $10 super chat. Are the supporters coming back this year or are they done? So to my understanding, everybody is, I think, let's see, Lars came back. I think we saw Galaxians back. I don't know if Outlaws are back, and I apologize if I missed it. But I don't know if they're back. And to my understanding, just still with Angel City Brigade is still in silent protest because there were certainly people in the stands just in silent protest there. I'm trying to think anything else. No, that's it. I'll let you guys go. You guys have been awesome hanging in there on a solo show. My voice is getting ready to go. I have a weird thing I have to do where I have to drive to Arizona tomorrow and back. So, ending the show a couple minutes early so I can get a little pato rest and then head on out into, I think it's going to be like 112 degrees. That's great. Good times. Always go to Arizona in the summertime. That would be great. But round trip there and back. Hopefully that all goes well. But I don't know when our next show will be. I was going to try to possibly do something on Wednesday, and maybe Wednesday night I do a quick show. Maybe it's not live. Maybe it's just a podcast, that type of thing. I'm possibly thinking about doing something on Friday night. Eric's out, but we'll drop it. So right now, let's say we're doing something on Friday night again, even though I hate that. So we'll sort of talk to you about the wrap-up of Phase 1 in the Leagues Cup. We'll tell you what the LA Galaxy did there, and then we'll have a Seattle on Sunday and sort of get to preview that. All right? Wonderful. I appreciate it. You guys are awesome. It was great seeing everybody at the halftime meetup, the world famous, as Matt says, the world famous Corner of the Galaxy halftime meetup. It's always great seeing everybody. Always great seeing you around. I hope you enjoy. I really enjoyed the game against Cruz Azul. I really, really did. Let's see. Crazy says $2 super. Do you have a favorite Mexican team you're rooting for? I will tell you exactly what I told Rob Jalen last night, which is don't ask me about Mexican teams. I can barely keep track of the LA Galaxy most of the time. All right. That being said, I have enjoyed, and this is just for this season and just recently, I have enjoyed watching Chivas play just because you got Efrain Alvarez on there, you got Daniel Aguirre on there, Chicharito. There's a lot of LA Galaxy alum. I believe there's also somebody else who was in the academy. Damian Calhoun was telling me there was somebody who played for like the LA Galaxy Academy who's on Chivas now too. So, the LA Galaxy populating Chivas, Guadalajara right now. So, but no, I don't have a favorite Mexican team. One of the guys who's at work is a huge Toluca fan, so he's already been trash talking whenever it comes to Campeones Cup, which is great. And then he called me after each game, after Tijuana and Cruz Azul and that type of thing. So it's been fun. I always like that whenever. I think that's maybe the most fun thing that I like about Leagues Cup is the crossover, right? Is that I have guys who are part of the company I'm in, and they're Liga MX fans, and that's what they watch and that's what they do. They watch some MLS, right? But that's where their heart is, and so it's fun to sort of get a little trash talking in there and talking about different things. So it's good, and it's nice that the LA Galaxy have been showing up lately, right? I mean, it's fun to watch good soccer, and I think that second half there was some really good soccer the Galaxy played. That was a battle. That was an absolute battle. The dividends should pay forward on this Cruz Azul game. That was one of the best teams in the tournament. Yes, they got beat by 7-0 by Seattle. If they play that game again, I guarantee you that's not the score. But Cruz Azul it can be a really good team. They play an interesting system, and it's nice to mix that up so that way you can sort of see how your team reacts. You're testing. You're always testing. You want to see how the LA Galaxy play. You want to see whether they play well. You want to see all these things because all of this matters. Now they get into a Thursday game. The Galaxy have not played, quote unquote, a really meaningful game this year. We finally have one on Thursday night. It is a meaningful game. They need to win. They need to win by multiple goals. This is something you often don't see in Major League Soccer, is having to win, and not just win, but win by multiple goals. So we get into some tournament intricacies here, and certainly watching the tiebreaker and everything that's coming on will be fun. So, all right, there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, all our favorite fans, thank you for hanging around for a little bit and talking some stuff with me. It's been fun. We had fun in the Mix Zone last night. It's always fun in the Mix Zone. I'm still working on my TV pilot called The Mix Zone, which is about reporters standing around waiting for players to come out and talk to them. And whenever the players do come out, they just walk right by. It's always great. That's the best part. Most of the LA Galaxy players are awesome. By the way, big congratulations, and I think I said it once before, but I'll say it again, to Maya Yoshida, who welcomed a new child into their family. Didn't get into specifics with it, but was able to say hi and congratulate him. So Maya was there and walked by, and we got to say congratulations. It's always nice that. So more future G's, right? That's how it works. All right. I think that's it. Let's get out of here. If you're looking for me on any social media, why would you do that? I have no idea. At Galaxy Podcast, head on over to cornerthegalaxy.com. You can go to SoundCloud, you can go to Spotify, you can go to iTunes, you can go to any of those places, and you can type in Corner of the Galaxy, and that's where you'll find us. We're in season 17, more than 1,200 and what are we, 20 shows or something like that? I don't know. It's too many. It's too many shows. But we're there. We'll stay with you for the rest of the season here, too, and get you ready for what's going to happen here with Leagues Cup and then the rest of the MLS season, closing out, off-season, all that stuff is still headed our way. It's the middle of summer, man. We're almost there. All right. Kevin's out, but he should be back next Monday. We'll see what his sports covering schedule is going to be. But for Mr. Kevin the Panda Baxter, who's not here, I'm Josh Patrick Guesman. You've been listening to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo. And on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.